This is Amud Yomi, Gemara in Berachos, Daf Mem Amud Aleph, and we pick it up from the top line of Mem Amud Aleph, in which we're in the middle of discussing the halachas of Hamaitzi. Amar Rav teaches Rav Tola Brich, Tola Beroich. Someone says Hamaitzi, and then before taking a bite, he says, take a piece. Take a piece, Tol Baruch, take a piece literally of that which was blessed, take a piece of the Hamaitzi. Einai tzarech levarech. He does not need a new brach. Have melech have lifton. If he says, bring some salt, bring some relish for the bread, then tzarech levarech. Then he indeed does need to make a new bracha before he eats. Rav Yechanan Amar Avilu Heviu Melech Heviu Lifton Nami Inu tzarech levarech. Even if he says, bring some salt, bring some relish, he does not have to recite the bracha. Kabel l'tiri, if he says, wait, we didn't feed the animals. Kabel l'tiri, need the bran with water for the oxen, then yes, says Rav Yechanan Sarach Levarich. Rav Sheishes Amar, and again, as you see every level dropping one down, teaches Rav Sheishes, Afilu kabel l'tiri nami in a Sarach Levarich. So Rav Sheishes says in all three cases, whether he says take a piece, bring the salt, or give the animals, you do not have to make a new bracha. Why? Da'amar Rav Yehuda Amarav, 5 lines down, Mem Amud Aleph, Asr li Adam sheichal kodem shita ma'achol behemta. Says Rav Sheishes, this is an intrinsic necessity for you to eat. For me to eat, it's for my animals. Yes, I'll provide grass for the cattle. One is not allowed to feed before feeding the animals, and therefore it is a necessity. So if you say need to give to the animals, that is allowed, and one does not need to make a new bracha. At the 2 dots, about 10 lines down, Mem Amud Aleph continues the Gemara. Amar Rav bar Shmuel Mishum Rav Chia Ein Aboitzei Rashi Livsaya. The one who makes the bracha and cuts the bread, he's not able to make the bracha and to break the bread. Till everyone has the salt, the relish for each and every person. Meaning, that's which we just said a moment ago is bidi avad. If you messed up and you don't have the salt, wait, give me the salt. You don't make the bracha till you have the salt. Says the Gemara, Rava bar Shmuel, Rav bar Shmuel went to visit the Reish Galusa, Afikole Rifta. They brought him some bread. And he made a bracha and he broke the bread right away, cutting it, and he didn't wait for the salt, he didn't wait for the lifton. Amruleh, they said to him, Hadar Mar Mishmaitze, were you chayzer? Amruleho, Lazadin Surach Brash. Bishash, excuse me. This bread does not need anything, and as Rashi explains, a very important line, about 10 lines into the narrow lines, Bishash, Ikov, Kamoy Boishesh, Kalaymar, Pas nikiyahi, it's clean bread zu. Ve'ein tzarich lifton. The reason why we say it's such an important line is because we all know that nowadays our bread doesn't need anything either. Of course, we dip it because the Kabbalah, the halacha says to dip it. But the nafkamina is, or Chaim Sheinberg famously held that bisman hazeh, it would be a hefsek to ask for the salt. Why? Because our bread doesn't need the salt. We're only putting in the salt, the halacha, but it does not need it, and therefore lechatchila, of course, one should not ask for the salt in such a scenario. Of course, there are mekilim. And with that, we continue at the 2 dots, about 15 lines down. Va'amar Rava bar Shmuel b'shem Rav Chia in meir glayim kolim ela b'yeshiva. Once Rava bar Shmuel said something in the name of Rav Chia, we repeat, other dinim, even unrelated in his name, meir glayim does not completely empty out from the body while one is sitting. But if he's going, Ella b'yeshiva, only if you're sitting. I mean, if you're sitting, it's easier to empty out the bowels. But comes like Rav Kahana and he says, wait, but if you're standing, but alfar tichuach, if it's loose earth, then he's able to use the bathroom fully. He doesn't hold anything in. There's nothing that bounces off, and therefore he could as well empty out the bowels. Go to a higher place, and go on an inclined surface again. The Nakuda is we don't want it to bounce back and thereby stop one from using the bathroom, and therefore one will be able to completely empty out the bowels. And one more, after everything, eat salt, and after everything, drink water, and you will not get harm from that which you eat if you follow every meal with salt and water. We have a right to this point. Tani idach, what a different brisa says. Ochel kol meichav l'ochel melech v'yeh food and not eat salt. Shotz kol mashal l'shotz amayim bayoim yidag min areach hapeh. Be concerned you can have bad breath. U'b'leili yidag minei askara, the terrible disease. Tanu Rabbanan hamakvi achlasa b'mayim, one who floats his food with water. You have too much water. Einay bali dechali mayim. There's no such thing as too much water. I'll never get intestinal illness. More water helps the fluid, flushes it out of the system. Says the Gemara Vikama, and how much water is this that you want in order to float, in order to flush the system? Amrav Chiston Kita, in a times worth, a flask per le pas. Amar Ramari Amrav Yechram, once we're on the topic of healthy eating habits, Haragel Ba'adashim, someone who is ruggle, someone who is accustomed to eat adashim, to eat lentils, Achas l'shleishim yoim, mani askara mitoch beisa, he prevents askara from entering into his house. V'lo yoid, no, we skipped, excuse me. Aval kol yoima, but eat lentils every day. Loi, my taima, mishad nikashal reach abhe, because it's bad for bad breath. V'amarav Mariam Rav Yechla ragel b'chardol, achas l'shleishim yoim. If one has chardol, mustard seed, once every 30 days, about 5 lines from the white lines, he prevents illness from his house. Avol kol yom alay, again, my time, what's the reason not to have mustard daily? It's bad for the faintness of the heart, it's difficult on the heart. And 3 lines from the white lines, Amar Rav Chia, the medium-sized lines, excuse me. Amar Rashi Amar Rav, Haragol b'dagim ketanim, you have little small fish, sardines. Ein abal dechalim ayim, you won't have intestinal illness. Not only that, el shadagim ketanim, mafrin umarbin umavrin kol gufa shel adam. It make fruitful and healthy your whole body. It's good. Little fish is good for the system. Amar Rav Chama Rav Chanina. Haragol beketzach, when it's custody, ketzach inable de cave lave will not come to have heart pains. And again, we just mention as we continue on the second medium-sized line that all these Gemaras obviously have deeper meanings that we just try to scratch the surface literally. Meisvei asked the Gemara Shemigam the Alaymer ketzach. Echad mishishim samanei amavesu. Ketzach is one of the 60 deadly poisons. Vayashin mizach garanai. Tamai b'raish, if you sleep on the east of the storage room, blood is on your head, so we see that ketzach is harmful. Says the Gemara, loikash haberechai ha b'taima. It's harmful with the odor, whereas when it comes to eating it, the consumption, that is good for you. And we conclude this part. Imid Rav Yirmi Avalei Rifta would bake bread for him. She would stick ketzach onto the bread to absorb the flavor of the ketzach and then peel it off so you don't get the smell. And she figured out this way that you could get the ketzach without the bad smell that is associated with it. And 3 lines from the very wide lines continues the Gemara quoting the Mishnah, Rav Yuda Omer Achidish, that on anything that grows from the ground you don't make a bayir pri adama, but rather bayre mine dishaim, more specific, creates herbs. Amar Rav Zeri V'Tim Rav Chanina Bar Papa, ein halacha ki Rabbi Yehuda. Amar Rav Zeri V'Tim Rav Chanina Bar Papa. My time of the Rebbe, where's the Rebbe come from? Amar Kra Baruch Hashem. Yoim, Chima Yoim Baruch Hashem. Laila Ein Baruch Hashem. What does this pasuk mean? El Eloim Lacha. You know what the pasuk teaches you? Kol Yoim VaYoim Ten Lo Me'ein Baruch Hashem. Every day give Hashem something reflective of a particular bracha, chanami, kol minu min. And similarly, it says Rav Yehuda, for every item, tell him me'ein bracha, don't be so broad in your bracha, be more narrow. Continues the Gemara of Amrav Zeh, every time Rachlina bar pop, bar reish, like me das Kadosh Baruch Hu, me das basav v'dam. Me, das basav v'dam kli rekel machzik malei nei machzik. Says the Gemara, and of course, only quoting this because it's the same Rav Zeh, every time Rachlina bar papa. An empty vessel does not hold, whereas a full could hold, whereas a full vessel cannot. Aval HaKadosh Baruch Hu Einoi Kain, the exact opposite. Malay, when one's a Talmud Chacham, one's full of Torah, then machzik he could hold more. Reikon, but when one is empty, then Eino Machzik, he does not hold anything. Shneemar, as the Pasuk says, V'yomrim Shamaya Tishma. And if you will listen, you'll listen. Im Shamaya, if you listen, then Tishma, you'll be able to listen further. Tishma Tavrachim Shamaya B'yashan. If you listen when you're old, you review again and again that which you'll already learn. Tishma B'chadash, then you'll have to learn new things. But if you turn your heart away, unfortunately, Shov Lois Tishma, once you stop learning, then you will not be able to learn anything further. We continue with the Mishnah on the bottom of Mem Amud Aleph. Birich ala peiros ha'ilan peirei pri hadama. Begins the Mishnah. Some mishaps. What happens if you made the wrong bracha? You made on fruits. Pri hadama not ha'etz yatzer yaitze. What about on vegetables? You made Bari Bria 8, then Lo Yatz. And of course, the simple reason is a tree grows in the ground. So if on an apple I make Bari Bria Adama, it's the wrong bracha, but at least it's not wrong. At least it has truth to it. Whereas if on a carrot, I make ha'it. Carrots don't grow in trees, therefore it's wrong. Therefore you're not yoitze. V'al kulam, but if on all them imamar shakol niyavad varai, blessing Hashem for everything, then yatza, then one is yatza. So we also begin. The Gemara says, the Gemara mantana deikar ilan aruhu, who holds that the ikar of a tree is from the ground, and therefore if you make a barbri adama on a fruit, you'll be yoitze. Amar nachra yitzig Rav Yehuda he did tinan yavesh hama'ayon, if the stream that water the field dried up, and Ixas Elon, the tree was cut down, maybe even a kaira, he brings Bikurim, but he does not read it. Rav Yehuda Aimer, maybe Ukaira, as Rav Yehuda holds, even if it's lacking in the ground, as Rav Yehuda holds, the Ikar is the Ara, and therefore you'll be Yaitse, even if it lost its nourishing source. We'll stop over here, and we'll pick it up in the two dots the next year, B'siyata Dishmaya.